The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond. The Analysis. Part 2. Patience. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. So what we're doing today is we are going into the next section of the second part of the lecture given by Henry Drummond titled The Greatest Thing in the World. And if you haven't seen the first couple episodes, we're talking about love. Henry Drummond references 1 Corinthians 13, written by Paul to the Corinthians from the Bible, stating that love is the greatest thing in the world. And the first section of the book is really about contrasting love with other things and justifying as to why love is the greatest thing in the world. And we went through things like charity and faith and hope and all those things. And then right now we're in the analysis. So if love is the greatest thing in the world, what is it? So last week we read the first introduction to this chapter, to this section called the analysis. And we got right up until we started going through them individual. And he breaks it down into 9 qualities. He talks about it like light breaks up into different variants of color. And the same thing is the love functions the same way, that love is comprised of different behavioral practices, which manifests as love when you all combine them together. It's not just one way, one thing or another thing. Actually, it's the accumulation of all of these behaviors that we're going to talk about. And we're going to give each behavior its own episode. So I'm looking forward to really diving in with you. And thank you, everybody that has liked, subscribed, has watched the content, shared the content, followed, all of that good stuff. I really appreciate the support. I love that this content's getting out in front of people, and hopefully people become interested and go read the book and get their own opinion on it. And this is just my interpretation of these books. And again, this podcast is really about getting into some of these old time. I say old time. I should quantify like around 1900. A couple years before, a couple years past, authors that have really had an impact on my own spiritual journey. These are authors that were also being read by the founders of the 12-step movement, that had an impact on the formulation of the 12-step programs, which has since changed from just Alcoholics Anonymous to a plethora of other 12-step groups for many, 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 many different issues and different spiritual maladies, as it would be. So thank you all for joining me today. And I am really excited to get into this first principle. So this is going to be the first principle that Paul identifies from 1 Corinthians 13 as to what makes up love, right? And the first thing that Paul says is love suffereth long. And Henry Drummond categorizes that under patience. So here we go. This is going to be read from this copy of Henry Drummond's Addresses. This was released in 1890. This is the earliest version I could find. Now, I do want to remind you all that this version is slightly different from all of the newer revised editions. It doesn't have... The wording's been changed in some things, in the newer ones that most people will be following along with. And in this case, there's like 2 sentences added to the end of the paragraph, as well as some of the structures mixed around. But I'm going to be reading from this version because I'm doing that because it's the most authentic to when it was originally delivered. And I care about that. I value that quite a bit. So it's... it might not line up exactly with what you've got in front of you when you're reading this, but I always go as close to the source as I can with these things. So let's go ahead and get into the reading about patience in Henry Drummond's book, The Greatest Thing in the World. Second section, the analysis. So Here we go. Patience. Love passive. The normal attitude of love. Love waiting to begin. Not in a hurry. Not petulant. Not hasty. Calm. Composed. Waiting to begin when the summon comes, but meantime wearing the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. That's the end. It's only one paragraph to kick this whole thing off. One paragraph. But even though it's a short one, even though it's read in 30 seconds, the depth in that reading and the importance of this one being first is really, really cool. It's kind of amazing, to be honest with you. When I was doing kind of tearing it apart, when I was really going through this, it's amazing how much you can just draw out from the way a sentence was structured or a paragraph was structured. Like what they wrote with such intention, back in the day, like every word mattered. Every, sentence was structured specifically with intention. And so even though it's only one paragraph, and I think this is the shortest virtue or principle reading out of the 9 that Paul gives us and Henry Drummond speaks to. And so the rest will be a longer read, but for being the first one and just being one paragraph, it's kind of amazing to see the depth he can write with in just a couple of sentences. It's an art form, really. So yeah, it was a short reading, but wow, I just really loved that reading. And how appropriate that patience is the first one that we read about. In a word, for even in today's circumstances and today's society and today's cultures, right? Like we're people that are used to demanding actions and quick results and same day or 2-day delivery on everything we buy and instant access to any information that you like, and all sorts of ways where patience is not needed to be practiced. So we don't actually embrace it in any real depth. So patience is almost a lost art, I believed, in today's society. It's a virtue and a principle that many have a difficult time practicing. So to start this whole thing off with patience being the first virtue that Henry Drummond talks about, and how that Paul really talks about here, is pretty fantastic, right? And it's not, and this reading, and I really like the reading too, because it's not just saying the practice of patience is loving. Okay, right? Like we understand that's the whole concept here, right? But it also is talking about what does practicing patience in a loving way look like? Because I don't know about you, but I can say I'm being patient and just not be exuding any type of spirituality when I'm doing it. I can be very resentful and very miserable when being patient. And that's not a loving practice of patience. So we talk about not just that patience is loving, but what it looks like to practice patience lovingly. And also what a patient state of being is intended for and is about. So this there's got a lot to it in these couple of sentences, you know. There's so I love it. And again, this is the readings. The reading in those with a newer edition is a little bit restructured, and it also has a couple of sentences at the end. I will regularly remind everyone that is the case, but I will not be bringing in the other readings any further. I want to stick to this version and this version only. So I'll remind you all that yours is going to sound a little different when it's going to sound a little different, but I will stick with the 1890s printing of it. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. The first three words, let's start there. The first three words is quite a statement in and of itself. And they're extremely powerful. And the first three words are simply patience. Just that's it. Patience, period. I believe it's just, patience, telling us what we're talking about. And then love passive. Love passive. So remember, this patience portion is pulled, patient, nice alliteration, from 1 Corinthians, stating love suffereth long in 1 Corinthians 13. So what Drummond is saying, that patience is defined in terms of love by the statement love passive. Now, a lot of people, including myself, when you first read it, kind of passive seems there's almost a negative connotation with it. Passive seems to be a negative way for people to be. People are actively avoiding being passive at times and consider passivity of any sort to be a weakness. So I wanted to define passive. So I got my handy dandy 1927 or 29 Webster's dictionary out to make sure I had at least the closest definition I can come to for passive. Because let's remember, as we've found along the way with James Allen's works and Emmett Fox's works, and even in the reading I Was a Pagan, the definitions of words have seemingly changed. So I found it important to let's define passive here to make sure we can all be on the same page. So when I went and I pulled the dictionary out and I was looking at it, and passive is defined as suffering without resisting, not acting, submissive, which I looked up submissive too because that's a hot word today, and it means yielding to authority, obedient, humble. And then passive can also mean acquiescent, which is reposing or resting, calm or silent. So passive is not necessarily a negative thing. It's just the state of waiting. And it's the state of waiting potentially highlighting the fact that it might not be a comfortable period of waiting. Right? It's suffering without resisting, not acting, being submissive, yielding to authority, reposing or resting. Right? So we're gathering ourselves, even should it not be the most comfortable thing to do. And then calm, silent. So love Excuse me. So patience can be defined as love suffering without resistance, or love not acting, love being calm or silent. Now, those sound a little bit more acceptable in today's day and age and terminologies, I'm sure, for many. So when we think about this in this way, we're saying love is not intruding. Love is not imposing. Love is not asserting itself into a situation. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it has been my experience that this is the most difficult form of love to practice. We have associated so heavily that if you love somebody, you will take an action to show it. You will buy something to express it. You will assert yourself to correct something you believe needs to be corrected. And those things will come from a good place, a good intention, right? If you have somebody that's suffering from alcoholism or drug use, right? You want to go and just fix them. You want to force them to take action. You want to force them into a rehab. You want to force them into a detox. You want to make it so that they have to get help, right? We feel this urge to take control of a situation. We feel compelled to take a good intentioned action to try to help somebody and help them the way we believe they need the help, whether they are on board for it or not, whether they want to or not. Sometimes we try to help people that genuinely don't want help, and these people can sometimes know that there is a problem, but they have no interest in fixing it, right? So we try to impose our own will, and we try to force people into a situation or circumstance where they have to accept the help we think they need. And this actually is selfish. This actually changes from a loving thing to a selfish thing, because we're actually serving ourselves at that point. We're trying to quell our own fears or whatever it is that we have going on. We might have a genuine desire for someone to be better, but what we're talking about here is patience, love passive, unintrusive, unselfish. That's what we're trying to practice here. We're not trying to force someone into a position where they have to accept the love that we're providing them. That statement just sounds odd, doesn't it? That statement just sounds heavy or almost a little gross to it, right? Like force someone to accept the love we believe is right for them. And parents, it's kind of our job to actually do that, I guess, right? When you're raising children, you provide guidance, education, instruction, correction even, right? Consequence. But the reality of it is you can't force someone to learn a lesson. You can't force anyone to modify a behavior. That all has to be chosen. And without this practice of passive love, this patience, we can actually do more damage and push people further away rather than encouraging them or facilitating them inviting help in. And for those who are familiar with any type of 12 step, you might have heard a statement like this: we don't get to rob someone of their bottom. We don't get to rob someone of every single consequence that they're going to receive as a result of their actions. We actually are removing from them the opportunity or spiritual growth. We're extending their suffering when we do not allow them to suffer the consequence of the decisions they've made. So this selfish desire to help somebody and to take action on the love we have for somebody can actually facilitate more harm in the long run. We talked about selfish charity a couple episodes ago, and how, when you selfishly give something that's really an ineffective thing to do, but it makes you feel better about yourself because you gave the guy on the street $1, even though you know that $1's not really going to help at all, but it makes you feel better because you feel guilty or you feel pity for them. But true help would give them nothing. That's the same kind of concept as that we're talking about. It might not be patience exactly, but it's passive. Or when the time's appropriate, do much more than giving them $1. People don't always like to know that. People don't always like to hear that their good intended help, or at least what they believe is good intended, is really just a self-serving act. And this lack of passive love, or this lack of the ability of people's ability to practice patience, because patience has to be practiced. The lack of that ability for people to do causes a lot of selfish action, causes a lot of resentment, causes a lot of hurt and isolating and outcasting, because it's not an actual loving thing to do. And the next part is, Drummond says, the normal attitude of love. So the normal attitude of love is passive. That's the resting state of love, I guess you could say. So love, the normal attitude of love waiting to begin, not in a hurry, not petulant, not hasty, calm, composed. Well, there's a lot there, right? So this is the normal attitude of love, to waiting to begin to take action, not hurrying, not being petulant, and not being hasty, and being calm and being composed, right? So this is the attitude of love that we need to take. This is the normal state in which love functions, turns out, right? Because when love is just existing, we have to put it into action when it's appropriate. It's just there patiently waiting. It is there waiting to begin to take the actions that need to be taken, and waiting to provide whatever help needs to be provided at the appropriate time, when it's included or when it's invited in. This is love's natural state, is to be patient, is to be passive. Its natural state is waiting. And that's hard. Gosh, that is hard. Love doesn't assert itself. It doesn't inject itself into situations where it's not invited in. If it is, that's imposing. Love has to be invited in, right? It's not intruding on people's lives. It's waiting to begin. That first line, love waiting to begin. And then we have to be ready. We have to be prepared, right? We need to allow people the dignity of their own journey. We don't rush the process. It says the normal attitude of love is not in a hurry. Do what you need to do to get to a place where you'll accept this help, this genuine help from a loving place. To genuinely accept love into your life. We're not going to hurry you. We will allow you to have your journey. That is very, very difficult. We do not rush the process because we have people that are suffering in our lives that we care about. We have people that we want to see do well. We have people we love and people we care about. But the reality of it is, we cannot help that person until they desire the help, truly desire the help. And part of my story is when I got into recovery, when I got sober, due to being arrested, 4.5 months into that, my brother passed away. From using. From an overdose. And it took me a while to really understand that there was nothing I could have done to change that. There was no amount of talking. There was no amount of begging. There was no amount of pleading with somebody that would have actually encouraged him to change, that would have encouraged him to embrace recovery, and it would have rushed him along. It wouldn't have been something he could even accept at the time. He knew about recovery. He had been in many more rehabs than I had. He knew about it. So we get scared and we want to hurry somebody up to get to a place where they're ready to go, ready to help. But the reality of it, we can't do that. It is everybody's personal journey. We have to give everybody the dignity of their path. And that is when we patiently wait. We don't demand they become ready. We don't shout at them and criticize them for not accepting the help that we have deemed appropriate for them. We don't prematurely take action too. That's another thing. It says, love is not hasty, right? It is patient. Love passive. We take action when we are invited into someone's life and they are asking for the help. They are asking for the actions to be taken. Our hasty desire to take an action that we think is going to help somebody, again, this just pushes people away, gives them the opportunity to have a resentment, gives them a bad taste in their mouth, makes them feel like everyone's just trying to change them and they're not good enough and everyone else hates them or this, that, the other thing, right? And that's not where we want to be. We don't make hasty, premature decisions to try to interject ourselves into someone's life. They need to go through what they need to go through, and then they need to become willing to invite it in. And that is why passive love is so difficult. We wait patiently and not petulantly. We're not standing there like a miserable person just complaining about everything that they do and stomping like a child. We don't just wave our arms around, kick and scream on the floor, throwing a fit because we have to patiently wait while they go out and suffer more and try to express our distaste for their decisions. But we're being patient. I do this sometimes. I've done this a lot where, oh, I'm being patient, but I'm going to sit here and I'm going to judge you and I'm going to condemn you and I'm going to critique you and criticize you. And I'm going to make sure you know by looking at my face that I am not happy with you. But I'm going to claim I'm being patient. Go take your actions. Is that inviting? Is that a healthy way to be? Is that somebody that would be approached when someone needs actual help? No, I don't think so. Absolutely not. That's not true patience. That's not loving patience. That's just a miserable disappointment, not loving patience. What we need to exude and what we need to exhibit is calm and to be composed, to allow ourselves to be as prepared as possible for when the call for help is asked for, when it is requested that somebody invites us in to help them lovingly, to take the actions we need to take. We allow things to be exactly as they are in the time that it takes, even when it scares us or makes us uncomfortable. We wait with love. We don't try to make ourselves feel better. We don't try to force someone to act in a way so we don't get scared anymore. We can't do that. It's selfish, it's self-centered, and it actually drives a wedge between you and that person. Because you're taking actions from the wrong place. We need to be waiting to begin when the summons comes. When the summons comes. If we're expending all our energy and then we're just constantly wrapped up in why we think we're right and that person's wrong, and we're just expending all this mental energy and physical energy and emotional energy on this stuff, then guess what? That whole time when we were supposed to be passively, lovingly waiting, we're not actually collecting ourselves. We're not actually preparing ourselves. We're not actually putting ourselves in the best place to actually successfully help somebody, because we've been too wrapped up in our own opinions and how we think things should go. And we are not as ready as we could have been for when the summons comes, is how Drummond puts it. Patience, love passive, means it is our responsibility to make sure we are fully prepared to take loving action when we are invited to and invited into other people's lives. However that looks. That's our responsibility, to practice love passively, because it allows us to be the most prepared, to be of service, to help those that need the help and willing to accept the help. And I want to say too, it's when. He doesn't say if, he doesn't say possibly. Henry Drummond says when the summons comes. We need to be ready for it, because we've been patiently waiting in a loving, passive state for them to continue to move forward. Let's not lose sight of the fact that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we need to make sure we're ready to reach that hand out when it happens. And this is the last reading, or the last line of the reading. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that summons, wearing the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. We stay uninvolved, but ready. We do not judge. We do not condemn the individuals. We do not belittle or insult them. Which is difficult for many to do, including myself. It's something I've had to practice to not do. Because I want to wear this ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. I don't want all of this petulance, as he said, or this loudness about me and my character to put a wall between myself and anyone I could help, right? I'm also not desperately pleading with somebody or begging somebody to change or to accept the help that I or we believe that they need. We're not doing that either. We take this loving presence that we're given and this loving heart and this loving soul, and we just patiently wait with it to give to somebody else when they are ready. That's what that meekness entails, is that non-intrusiveness, right? Not imposing my will, right? Instead of my will being done, I will patiently and lovingly wait for someone else to ask for help in those actions. That's what meekness is. It's less of my will and more of the God of my understanding's will. Not taking actions because it benefits me, but taking actions because it's the loving and right thing to do. And sometimes that action is waiting. Love passive. And when we do that, when we conduct ourselves and we wear this ornament of meek and quiet, we keep the air clear between them and us. We keep the interactions true and honest. We keep the channel open for them to not be resentful and come have a conversation with us. We do people a disservice when we're begging them to change, when we're criticizing them, when we're judging them and condemning them, because they might not outright hear us, but they can certainly feel it. That it's been too long. That they should have done this earlier. That they're too far gone. I don't know if we can help them. Why'd they have to do that? Why'd they have to hurt those people? This is felt by those who we would seek to help with our loving embrace, but we push them away. We put up these walls. We can create this air of judgment because of our inability to practice patience, this loving, passive patience. And instead of people seeing an invitation or an open path to communicate and to approach us, there's just this resistance, this uninviting nature, this negative energy that they wouldn't want to pass through. So the most important thing we can do is conduct ourselves in such a way that we keep the door open for anybody that might need to come through it, and to receive the love that we have for them. To make sure that invitation to this loving presence of the God of your understanding is always available to anyone or anything, regardless of what's going on in society or what religious denomination you're a part of or affiliations you have or areas of the world you live in. It does not matter what is going on. You, like I, get to decide how I want to conduct myself. And will I be able to patiently and passively practice waiting, a loving, patience while the world turns on? That's your decision. That's my decision. What will you do with it? So that brings us to the end of the reading today. Like I said, short reading, tons of info. So I'm looking forward to getting into these even more as we go along. And next week, we will be talking about kindness, love in action. So remember, the natural state of love is passive until an opportunity presents itself for us to take loving action. So I know it's uncomfortable, but patience, unfortunately, is still certainly a virtue. So until next time, thanks.